The readings are impossible. It's not supposed to do this. It's almost like it remembers me. My name is Dr. Eris Thorne. As a physicist, I've built my entire career on one simple rule. Every mystery has a rational explanation. Every effect has a measurable cause. So, naturally, I came back here to find one. This house has been in my family for 3 generations. Locals know it by another name, the House with a Whisper. We're talking classic textbook ghost story stuff. Cold spots that drift down the halls. The faint sound of a child's voice when no one's home. Objects that move the second you turn your back. My parents finally moved out years ago, too unnerved by the constant, low-level strangeness. But me? I'm a scientist. I don't believe in ghosts. I believe in data. So I returned, my car packed with every sensor I could get my hands on, ready to prove this haunting was just old pipes, giraffes, and a healthy dose of overactive imagination. My working hypothesis was a fringe concept from the 70s called the stone tape theory. It's total pseudoscience, but it has a certain appeal. The idea is that intense emotions can somehow get recorded into the environment. The wood, the stone, the foundation of a building. These aren't ghosts, the theory goes, but a kind of playback, a residual haunting, like a video stuck on an endless loop. It felt like the most logical, illogical place to start. I was here to either prove it or, more likely, debunk it for good. The first week? Nothing. Zilch. The temperature fluctuated a bit, but those were just drafts in a creaky old house. The electromagnetic fields were flat. Honestly, I was starting to feel a little foolish, sitting there surrounded by millions of dollars of gear to hunt a ghost that didn't even bother to show up. Then, on the 8th night, everything changed. It started with a cold spot in the upstairs hallway, right outside my old bedroom. This wasn't a draft. This was a contained pocket of air, a good 15 degrees colder than the rest of the hall. My thermal camera watched it drift from the top of the stairs, stop at my door, and just fade away. An hour later, the audio sensors caught a whisper. You couldn't make out the words, but the spectral analysis was wild. It had the rhythm of a human voice, but it was harmonically broken, like a corrupted audio file. After that, things started getting more specific, more personal. A music box my grandmother gave me, one I hadn't touched in 20 years, plinked out 3 notes, then went silent. The cold spots didn't feel like random glitches anymore. They felt like a presence. I'd walk into the kitchen and get hit with this wave of profound, unshakable sadness. Or I'd be standing in the living room, and suddenly my heart would be pounding with a paralyzing fear that came out of nowhere. These weren't just quirks in the environment. They felt like emotions. And they weren't random. The activity always centered around me. It was like the house was awake and it knew I was here. And that's when the doubt crept in. Was the house making me feel this? Or was I just projecting my own anxiety onto the data? The data was unlike anything I'd ever seen. The phenomena were real. I had proof of the temperature drops, the EMF spikes, the interactive whispers. But none of it fit the stone tape model. That theory is about a simple playback, a recording. This was responsive. It was intelligent. This sent me down an even deeper rabbit hole. There are some highly controversial quantum theories that propose consciousness isn't just cooked up by our brains, but might be a fundamental property of the universe itself. It's way out on the fringes of science, but it sparked a wild idea. What if a moment of extreme trauma, terrifying pain, or grief didn't just leave an emotional echo, but an actual coherent piece of consciousness, snagged on the very geometry of a place? I convinced myself that's what I was seeing. Not a memory recorded on stone, but a fragment of a mind entangled with the house itself. I calibrated my prototype quantum entanglement sensor, a device most of my colleagues think is pure science fiction, and prepared to capture proof. I thought I was on the verge of the biggest discovery in history. I was completely, utterly wrong. We spend our lives trying to make sense of the universe, But sometimes the biggest puzzles aren't out there in the cosmos, but locked away inside of us. If you're fascinated by the frontiers of what we know, consider subscribing and joining the conversation. Your support helps make these explorations possible. The whole thing came to a head on a Tuesday. The house had been dead silent for 24 hours, and the calm was more unnerving than the chaos. Then, at 3 a.m., every single piece of my equipment went insane. The lights flickered out, the temperature in the living room plummeted, and the whispers started again. Only this time they were forming words. A child's voice, pleading, "Don't let him find me." My quantum sensor was screaming, the output a total mess of noise. I was on my knees, frantically trying to reboot it, when I heard it. The slam of the heavy front door, angry footsteps stomping down the hall, and the child's voice, now a terrified shriek, coming from the closet under the stairs. I wasn't just observing it anymore. I was feeling it. A wave of pure, hopeless terror washed over me, so intense I couldn't breathe. It was a child's terror. It was my terror. And just like that, I remembered. Not as a story someone told me, not as a piece of data, but as a full-body relapse. I'm 5 years old. There was a home invasion, a man with angry eyes. I hear my father yelling, my mother screaming my name, and I'm hiding, curled up in the suffocating darkness of the hall closet, hands clamped over my ears, trying to become so small the world disappears, trying to forget. The haunting wasn't in the house. It was in me. The human brain has an incredible defense mechanism for trauma: dissociation. When an experience is too horrifying to process, the mind can just wall it off to survive. This often leads to memory fragmentation, where the event isn't stored like a normal story. It's shattered into pieces, sensory feelings, raw emotions, and broken images. And those pieces don't just go away, they get buried. For decades, I had no conscious memory of that night, a classic case of trauma-induced amnesia. But the memory was all there, broken and waiting. Returning to the house, the physical location of the trauma, was the key that unlocked it. My grand quantum hypothesis was just a scientist's desperate attempt to apply external logic to an internal storm. The phenomena I measured were real, but I had the source completely wrong. The cold spots? My own body's physiological reaction to a triggered fear response, a sensory memory of the cold floor in that closet. The bizarre EMF spikes? In retrospect, my hypersensitive equipment was likely picking up noise from my own panicked biometrics or even static electricity, which my terrified mind interpreted as a ghostly presence. And the whispers? They were my own fragmented memories, bubbling to the surface in the exact broken way they were stored. The house wasn't playing back a recording. It was giving my own mind the cues to play its most terrifying forgotten song. The stone tape theory is pseudoscience, but as a metaphor, it's perfect. The tape wasn't the stone walls. It was my own neural pathways. The house is quiet now. The gear is all packed up. The ghost is gone. Not because I busted it, but because I finally stopped and listened to what it was trying to tell me. I acknowledged the memory. We love ghost stories because they let us look at fear from a safe distance. But what about the ghosts we carry inside of us? The past traumas and forgotten pains that follow us from room to room. Those are the real hauntings. They aren't spirits in the walls. They're memories embedded in our minds, waiting for the right key to turn, the right trigger to make us feel like we're 5 years old again, hiding in the dark. Perhaps every one of us has a haunted house we carry around. And maybe the only way to silence the whispers is to stop running, turn around, and finally face the memory that's been trying to get our attention all along. What ghosts are you carrying?